Let the church say amen. Let the church say amen. One more time again. Let the church say amen. Good morning again. And it is lovely to see you here this morning. Today, we're going to be talking about Joshua. Have you noticed in our responsive reading that we read in Joshua chapter 8? But what I want to do this morning is I want to give you something to think about. Fact, opinion, and propaganda. A lot of people look at fact and opinion and propaganda as the same thing. But in actuality, it's not. We can have the facts, and your opinion about them can be wrong. And the propaganda that you spit to the public can be just as wrong. But we can use fact, and it be in our opinion, and be truthful, and the propaganda be truthful also. But we have to be able to differentiate between the three. And the reason that I'm bringing this up this morning is because in Joshua, in the first chapter of Joshua, God commissioned Joshua, which means he gave him a job to do. He told him what was going to happen. He told him what he had to do. He set forth the parameters for him to operate in and told him what it was that he had to do. Now, as he was being prepared in chapter 1, verse 10, he was getting him ready for the invasion that they were going to take over Jericho and the other cities. Now, Joshua 2, he sent out, on chapter 2, he sent out some spies so that they could go and see what was going on and feel the people out and see what was the real situation and what they were going to have to contend with when they finally got to the city. Well, they had to cross the Jordan. So they had to cross the Jordan. They had to go across the Jordan. The Jordan is a mighty river. So it wasn't something that they were going to just easily be able to do. But because God was with Joshua and he had commissioned him and he had prepared him, he did him just like he did Moses. He broke open the Jordan so that they could walk across in dry land. Not only did they do that, they made an altar or a commemoration of that crossing, which they say still stands to the day. It's a pile of rocks. That was in chapter 4. Now, in chapter 5, they were talking about the new generation that was circumcised. And the reason that situation was because God had told them that Moses and that none of these older people would make it into the promised land. They all had to die out before they ended up coming to the promised land. And that's what happened. The reason that they had to have the circumcision, because all the old guys who had the circumcision, which is the covenant of the Jewish people showing that they have the covenant with God, all of the new ones, the young men, weren't. So they had to do the circumcision, which meant they had to do what they had to do in order to get them within the covenant of God, which he had set for them through Moses. Now, you're wondering why am I sending you through all this, and we're talking about all this. I'm going to tie it in together for you. We're going to keep moving, though. We're going to stay in chapter 5 and go into chapter 6. This is the part that I really like the most about when it comes into the sermon. See, in chapter 6, verse 17, it says, the city and all that was in it must be set apart for the Lord, except for Rahab, the prostitute, and all who are in her house, because she hid the spies. Those two that went out trying to find out what was going on, she took care of them, made sure that she took care of them. And she also asked them, would she be saved because of the fact that she did help them? And they told her, everybody in your family will be saved. All you have to do is just bring them into your house. And then once everything is done, we'll come and get you and we're going to take care of you. That's what he did. Now, but here's some of the things that did happen. When they went into Jericho, he says, be careful when you are setting apart the riches for the Lord, because if you take any of it, you will make the Israelite camp subject to annihilation and cause a disaster. All the silver and gold, as well as the bronze and iron items, belong to the Lord. They must go into the Lord's treasury. Now, in chapter 7, we saw that Achan, he did the worst of what he could have done. In 7:20, he told Joshua, it is true, I have sinned against the Lord in Israel this way. I have among the goods we seized a nice robe from Babylon, 200 silver pieces, a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels. He said, I wanted them, so I took them. He says they're hidden in the ground right in the middle of his tent, and the silver is underneath. 7:25, Joshua said, why have you brought disaster on us? The Lord will bring disaster on you today. All Israel stoned him to death. They also stoned and burned the others. That means everybody in that family was destroyed. Just like everybody in Rahab's family was saved. Now, when you get to chapter 8, I'm going to save that for last because they had to go in and conquer this other city. But what I'm bringing this to you for, and the reason I'm saying this is this. When the Lord commissioned Joshua, go to Acts 10 and 42. If you don't go to it, write it down so that you can read it later. It says in Acts 10:42, Luke says, he commanded us to preach to the people, to warn them that he is the only one appointed by God as judge of the living and the dead. About him, all the prophets testify that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of sins through his name. That's a commission. That's what we've been done. We are commissioned to do just that. Preach to the people. Spread the good news. That's what our job truly is. When it comes to talking about Joshua prepared for the invasion, he prepares us all the time for whatever invasion it is that we're going to have to deal with. If it's somebody attacking you financially, if somebody attacking you in your family, your marriage, your school, your job, God already has prepared you because he's given you everything that you need in order to be strong enough to be able to fight the wiles of the devil. But you got to have faith. Like I said in Sunday school, the man says, help me in my unbelief. No, I don't want to help you in your unbelief. I want you to believe. I want you to have faith. I want you to be strong in it. I don't want you to be questioning and wavering away what it is that you have to do, because when God gave it to you, he didn't waver when he gave it to you. He didn't piecemeal it till you give it to you little by little. When he blessed you totally. All right. Now, he's prepared you for your invasion. I'm going to break this to you down as say we're dealing for a job. Okay. He commissioned you, which means he sent you to school, get you ready. You do all the things you have to do. He prepares you. That's why you go through your testing and everything so that you can graduate, to show that you've moved up and that you got what it takes in order to do this job. Then you start looking for a job. Just like Joshua sent spies, you put out feelers to different companies to find out what they're about, to see if it's something that you'll be able to move into, if it's going to be something that you want to do. Because if God has already ordained you to do this and he's prepared you for it, now he's sending you to go to these different places so that you can see what's going on. Well, just like Israel crossed the Jordan, you're crossing into a new territory. You're crossing into a threshold of the unknown, something that you have no idea about, but you really want to because you think you're qualified and you got everything behind you to be able to do this. Most of us, when we go for jobs that we know that we can do, that we know that we're qualified for, most of us. But there's 1% of us who go for jobs we have no idea what the job's about. And you know what's funny about it? A lot of them get them. Yes, sir. Have no idea that you don't realize that you can get a job based on something that you don't know anything about. That's God. It ain't you. But then again, let's move on. The commemoration of the crossing that Israel got when they went across the Jordan. Here's your commemoration. You get an interview. Because you know a lot of people put in applications and they don't get an interview. So if you get an interview, that means you done crossed over and now you're in this new territory. Dealing with the circumcision in the new generation. This is new to you. What you're going to do when you go into a new job is you're going to cut loose all of that old stuff. Because think about it. When you go into a new job, just because you have an idea what the job is about doesn't mean that you can perform it. You have to be taught. They have to show you what it is you have to do. So you have to lose all of that old stuff, that old attitude that you had about the job that you had before. Just because you were a sales clerk and now you're a sales clerk at another company doesn't mean that your operation is going to be the same way. Right. There's always something different from store to store when it comes for jobs. Okay, now let's move on to the conquering of Jericho. Now, here's your conquering that you get, is that you get the job. That means you went through. You've been commissioned. You've been prepared. You put your feelers out, which means you did your homework. Not only that, you're in new territory. You're standing strong. You got your interview. You stood strong. And if you're praying to God and you're talking to God, everything that's going along in that interview is going just like you wanted to. Then all of a sudden, boom, you get that final call and you got the job. Now, here's the thing that most of us get caught up in. And and this is the part that I saved till last. In Matthew 10 and 31, it says, so don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. In Deuteronomy 3:22, it tells you, do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God will personally fight for you. We read this morning in responsive reading, Genesis 50:21, it says, now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little children, because he comforted them and he spoke kindly unto them. Joshua 8:1 says straight up, the Lord told Joshua, don't be afraid and don't panic. If he can commission you and he can prepare you and he can put you in the position where you need to be, and you got the spot that he wants you to do, and you got the job he wants you, what are you afraid of? Why are you questioning anything? Don't let the devil put something in your mind telling that you're not qualified or that you're not going to be able to stay. Because see, when you get a new job, this is some things that happens to you. You run around and you find people that you don't like. It's not that you don't like them because you don't know them. They just let you know right up front that they're not going to be your allies while you at that job. Why? You have no idea. You might have got a job that somebody was trying to get their child. Somebody might have been looking for a promotion into that job and you got it. They got that against you. You don't know what you're fighting against when you walk in this building. But God says, don't be afraid. He's going to take care of you. If he commissioned you and he prepared you, he led you there. He's going to take you through whatever it is that you got to go through in order for you to do what he wants you to do. Jericho fell because they did what they were supposed to do. All of the problems you got will fall at your feet as long as you do what God tells you to do. Stay strong in your faith. Work your faith. Do what you have to do. Joshua wasn't commissioned just because he was somebody God wanted to pick. There was a divine purpose for him dealing with Moses to get the position that he got. Same thing with you. You have a position right now and you have a purpose in your life, and most of it is for you to be a champion for God. Joshua was a champion. You are champions. Nobody can tell you what you can't do and what you can't accomplish. That only happens by you. You can only be your worst enemy. If you got God for you, who can be against you? Amen. And don't let yourself be that person that turns down all of the things that God has given to you. Remember, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Accept what he gives you with grace. Be grateful for it. Not only that, share it with others. As Jesus came down here to share himself with us, as we will partake of him this morning, that is the same thing God wants us to do at all times. Share, share, and share. We are to give of ourselves. We are to help our fellow man. And we are to do that not because we want to or get accolades or anything from, because God ordained us to do that. Every job that we have, if it's involved with people, it's called a service-connected position. Those are God's jobs because he puts us in those positions to help others. Think about it. If social service was filled with nasty, crabby people who didn't believe in nothing but themselves, nobody would get services. But because God is in a lot of the people who work in these organizations and agencies, he comes through. I've seen it happen to me. Walk into an office, I'm thinking, oh, Lord, these people getting ready to give me the flux. I walk in our office and I see crosses all on the wall. God told me right then, don't be afraid. I'm telling you too, don't be afraid. Doors of the church are now open.